Hi there, welcome. I saw someone with a pouch on their channel and I wanted to reproduce it. So this is what I came up with. I do a lot of crochet and knitting, and this is kind of like my version of a granny square made of fabric. So there's things tucked inside there, and so it's a square, the four corners kind of thing, and then you turn it like this, sew up these, join these two sides, and I just did some hand stitching there, and then this just comes over like a flap, and then I added just some hand sewn some lace on the bottom, and this is a little ball pin, and then this is a cluster here. So this is another one that I made. It's just a square piece of fabric with a bunch of stuff sewn onto it. I thought this would be cute to add into a journal, sort of, you know, an ephemera pouch kind of thing made of fabric. I couldn't find any tutorials, so I kind of just made it myself. And I did some stitching with my sewing machine, some scallop kind of fancy stitching there. It's like a scallop, and there is some little bit of interfacing in between, just one layer of interfacing. And so basically it just starts with 2 squares of fabric and a square of interfacing. So that's what we're going to make today. So the first thing I did was take my one piece to the sewing machine, and just all the way around the edges I sewed on that interfacing because it's non-fusible, so you have to sew it on. And we will be doing some cross section sewing, but that's to put all 3 pieces together, so we're not going to do that right now. So I've put the interfacing on the wrong side of the fabric, so the right sides of the fabric will be going together with the interfacing on the outside here. We're going to sew it and leave a little gap here so that we can turn it right side out. So right sides are together. When we turn it, the right sides will be facing out, and they'll be facing the right way. I'm going to put an extra clip here just so I know that's where to start and end the gap that's being left there. And so here's what I have, and I did cut the interfacing to be just a little bit inside of the fabric piece, so it doesn't add bulk when you've sewn the seams together and turned them. So if I have a 1/2 inch seam, then I would want the interfacing to be on the inside of that, just a little bit, so that when you turn it, it's not bulky in the seams. So I'm going to sew these together. So here is what I have, and I've just come in and just cut the corners, not too close to the stitching. And I also sort of brought these seams in and cut them close to the stitching. So I'd say there's probably like 1/4 inch, just to make it less bulky. And so I need to find the space I left to turn. So there's the space I left. It's about 4 inches. So I'm just going to take each corner, and I'm grasping it between my thumb and finger, and I'm pulling that through. So each corner, just get a good sort of grip between each layer. All right. And the last one here. So they're not very pointy at this moment. So that's what I have. Here's the gap there, and we will be turning those seams in once I've ironed this out. And so what is going to happen is we're going to take a corner and put the corners together like this. And then this will come down like that, making the pouch. But I need to press this out first and then sew up that gap. So what I was thinking was adding, while I'm top stitching all the way around, and then there's going to be some cross stitching. I thought for the top stitching all the way around, I could add some lace. Just very gently, I am going to grab the pin and just very gently on the seam there, bring that corner out. So I'm trying to get it right in between the stitching there, right in the corner, without pulling too hard, because you don't want to bring it out too far. All right, I'm going to take this to my iron and just try to make it look nice and square. And while I'm ironing, I am going to iron, just follow the seam line and iron that gap so that it's inside and just running right along with the seam there. All right, so I've done a couple of things at the sewing machine. I have done some decorative stitching. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines, and that's just to keep all the pieces together like a sandwich. Just a little note that when I get to the corners, I kind of do a little point, and I just kind of scoot in the lace there and make a little point on each, and it's kind of folded over, so it's kind of go to the end and then just kind of fold a little bit to make that point on each corner. And I think I'm going to put the corner that has the 2 sides like joined of the lace here on the top that will be folded over, because I am going to make a little cluster like this one to put on top, and then I can kind of fix it up and hide that that corner there. It's kind of hard to know where the best place to fold this is. It's kind of, I'm just kind of eyeballing it really. You want to have these 2 together, so I'll just use one of my clips at the corner there to hold that in place. And then come in on this side. And this is kind of a zigzag design lace, so I am trying to kind of line that up accordingly. Here we go. And I am leaving a little bit of space between the 2 pieces so that it will not bulk it up. So I think that's pretty good. Just another couple of clips here to hold these together up here. I don't want there to be a gap, but I also don't want it to be lying on top of each other. And so we'll just put that in place there. Okay. And so if this was going to come down like this, you could put it so that it just comes down a little overlap there, or it comes down about 1 inch from where the 2 meet there, and that is my preference there. So now the kind of tricky part is to join these 2 sides together. So if I was crocheting, I would just do a crochet line of crochet down each side, like for a granny square. But so they're not exactly abutting each other. So I am going to have to kind of be careful about that. What I'm going to do is just do some hand stitching and just come in and do a light seam. I'm going to try to do a hidden seam. so you won't be able to see the stitching. So that's what I'm going to work on next. All right, so I've done some stitching, just some hand stitching, and I just kind of went on an angle each stitch to kind of catch both of the sides of this lace. And I don't know, maybe the next time I use this lace, I would go with the wavy part facing that way and the straight parts lining here. I don't know. But to help ensure that I didn't go through all the layers, just the top layer, I put this board in here. So when I was doing my stitches, I could sort of just pick up the fabric but not go to the other side. So that's what it looks like. And then it plus, you know, when you get to the corners, it kind of helps you make a better corner. And so, you know, and then you can kind of judge, okay, this is sort of at the point where I'm going to be folding it if I can get there straight. And then you can kind of see, okay, did I actually mess it up totally, or is it somewhat in the middle? Okay, so I can take that out now. And I don't know, maybe it needs something for the back. Like you could actually cover this whole area with this, I guess. You know, and then have it kind of come in, and then it would come down like this. That would be pretty. It's this that I have is not the right color. I don't have a lot of laces and stuff, but I don't know, this is kind of the time to pretty it up. So we'll go forward, and as mentioned, this is where there's kind of a awkward join there. So I wanted to make a little point there, the little cluster that I put on the first one I made. So I'm just going to, I just have the matching piece of fabric. I'm also going to grab a piece of scrap to put on the back there that I will sew onto, and then that will make it a little bit more rigid when I'm sewing. All right, so what do I want? I always keep a bunch of scraps, like anything that I cut off, I keep. So yeah, I usually have a big messy pile of stuff. So here's a bunch of threads, and I put some stuff aside here, cut-offs, some lace, some ribbon, and a little bit of the matching fabric. And so I'm just going to make some loops with the fabric. I don't want to use all that. So I'm just coming in with some loops. Actually, I'm going to start with the darker color first, and then that's in with the to kind of blending that in a bit better. All right. I don't know, I kind of like the loopy kind of look. And I'm just holding all the layers together for the time being. A little bit of lace there. And I have this lace as well. I think I'm going to put this lace underneath that. You know, nothing. Kind of want it spread out, you know, equally. A little bit of, pull that over a little bit. Just throw these on there. And I often do this, I don't thread my needle before I start filming. Okay, oh, I have a little bit left over on the needle already. It's not going to be enough to go all the way around, but it will be enough to start. So I'm just going to try to affix all the little pieces with the needle and thread coming up from the back and over the top. I'm just going to do a little base sewing here. I will look for a button. I do love a button on top of this cluster. So here's the cluster, and I just put some lace looped around underneath, and I did sew that together, and then I just glued this on so you wouldn't see any stitching from the other side. And so here's a little something that I've put in there, and we can just close it like that. And to secure it, I was just using some matching fabric and just making a little bow. Kind of covers the cluster, but you know, you could sew that on the back and make it more secure, or you could add some like lace around it or whatever. So there's two little pouches to go in with your junk journals. I added a little bulb pin with some beads and a little button on that one, and then just secured that to the side. Just a little something. Just go crazy. All right. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Take care. Bye.